Anyways, Cam Akers, Cam the Ram is certainly not elite, so don't be putting those words in my mouth.
Whoa.
Cam Akers
You don't have
was
any faith in your guy?
a wonderful buy way back in September when he barely did anything. In week 1, he saw 3 carries, ran 4 routes, scored 0.0 fantasy football points. He was in your lineup, and you're very sad about it. And that is why we pounced. We were able to get him for late seconds in Dynasty, which was
far too much.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The premise of that was that we were buying contingent upside, which we do all the time. Anytime you can buy a primary backup that could actually just be the starter without an injury to the starter, you should probably just do that. And when you can do it for a late second, that's certainly at the price point when you want to do that.
Well, the flaw in your system was that you also included 2 other running backs who would fall into the description of a backup who could be the starter in Khalil Herbert and Rachaad White, who are both better than Cam Akers and much better bets than Cam Akers. And Rachaad White still holds more value than Cam Akers. Khalil Herbert, after getting injured in Cam Akers' most recent game, I think as of today, finally has fallen below Cam Akers in value after a season being ahead. Of all of the running backs that you can pick in this morass of mediocrity, why pick the bad one?
Well, the other ones were probably also bad and had little to no hope of just simply taking the job.
I mean, Rachaad White literally went from a straight backup to an even timeshare over the course of the season with an actual established starter, Leonard Fournette, as a rookie. Mm-hmm. That just happened.
Yeah. And Leonard Fournette is not going away.
And Darrell Henderson is probably going away. He's like 28 years old.
Bye-bye, Darrell Henderson. He's already gone.
I mean, Darrell Henderson was never really Cam Akers' problem. Cam Akers is Cam Akers' problem.
That's my point.
I don't think that at any point anyone was ever being like, man, Cam Akers is such a great talent, but he's really being held back by Darrell Henderson. Like Darrell Henderson, no, that's not the case.
Of course, that's my point. Darrell Henderson was inconsequential. Leonard Fournette,
and yet still somehow was started the year above Cam Akers. Maybe that's because Cam Akers is not very good.
I don't know. Basically, the argument was if Cam Akers is somehow able to regain the lead of his backfield, which is not an insurmountable mountain when we're talking about Darrell Henderson, and gets a 70% plus snap share, to end the season, scores somewhere in the neighborhood of 14, 15 points per game. Everyone's going to get all back in on Cam Akers. And
which was wrong because Rachaad White, who's in a split backfield, is still worth considerably more than Cam Akers, who has done exactly what you just said.
Give it time. It's been 2 days since his wonderful semifinal bludgeoning of the competition that was probably not in anyone's lineup on purpose.
You was played against me in one semifinals. Luckily, we persevered.
I played against him in one semifinal as well. It was great. I was still able to come up with a W. But basically what we're looking at with Cam Akers, just to sum this whole thing up, we were buying a contingent running back that had an insurmountable starter. That was the whole buy case for Cam Akers. Then we have an easy narrative, and you've seen it on Twitter already. Cam Akers is now healthy. He tore his Achilles tendon.
He's healthy again. Out of the woodwork. I mean, out of hiding. I thought they were in a witness protection program eating marinara sauce.
And they're back.
Ketchup instead of marinara sauce. That's the quote. But you're all back. You've crawled out of your holes wherever you were to come and stand for this mediocre running back.
My stance is I have no idea if he's back or not. It doesn't really matter to me. What I'm looking at this point is he's probably not long for the starter's chair. I'm not betting on Cam Akers being a starting running back in the NFL for the next 4 years. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it was foreseeable that there would be an instance in which Cam Akers would regain the lead control of the backfield. That was not there was no what would be the word? There's not an insurmountable starter. It wasn't Leonard Fournette. It wasn't David Montgomery, who is still an
insurmountable. Leonard Fournette has literally proven not be insurmountable as a starter in the sense that he hasn't started a game in a month.
And he's still getting what?
He's still getting
70% of the opportunities?
It's literally just dependent on the drives. They literally just rotate every second drive.
Isn't it interesting that Leonard Fournette's drives outlast Rachaad White's drives?
This is literally an argument that if it didn't serve your priors, you would skewer in every single circumstance. Everything that you believe about both stats, sample sizes, and the running back position in the NFL is being entirely ignored for the purposes of your man crush on Leonard Fournette and your hatred of Rachaad White.
I would love for the masses listening to the podcast to know that I was laughing hysterically while saying that entire segment. It was great. The point is that Leonard Fournette is not relegated to a backup role in which he's not on the field. That's the point. Darrell Henderson is no longer even on the team, no longer on any team, in fact.
I think he's going to look great in CFL.
It's going to be a wonderful addition to my Saskatchewan Roughriders. Let's go. We got to get back to the promised land. I don't think we've been very good lately. I don't know. I haven't watched CFL in what.
Yeah, well, you guys couldn't save Trent Richardson, so I don't know if you'll be able to save Darrell Henderson.
I don't think I've watched CFL since the Riders did that thing where they like put too many men on the field for the extra point or whatever, or the field goal.
Yeah, they lost the Grey Cup because of too many men on the field.
It's brutal. Anyways, with Cam Akers at this point, what we're doing with Cam Akers is we are sitting tight. We're going to go ahead and let this play out. He's seeing 70% opportunity share the last 4 weeks. Probably going to continue the last 2 weeks of the season. And then we're going to let the hype machine on Twitter let everyone know that Cam Akers is now fully healed. He got healthy suspiciously directly on week 13. That was when his health returned to peak form. And we're going to let that wave ride right into the future. And we are going to unload Cam Akers prior to the NFL draft, prior to the
for probably exactly what you wanted to buy him for earlier, which will be a mid.
Yeah, he's already up substantially from where we were buying him earlier. Way up.
So he's up to what, a mid-second?
What is he up to? Let's just confirm where we're at with Cam Akers.
I mean, he's certainly up from where he was a month after you said to buy him.
You could trade Cam Akers right now. Get this. You could trade Cam Akers straight up. No additions for one Gabriel Davis.
Yeah, I mean, what's that meme on Twitter? These two are having a mid-off?
I'm pretty sure that's only a Cash that posts that, actually.
It's a Kosh.
Kosh. So he is now greater than a mid-second. He is fully en route to an early second. We have grossed a tremendous amount of profit. Windfalls here.
Here's what I'm curious about, right? You like to do these keep trade cut commentaries, right? I would just like you to actually make a transaction in line with these keep trade cut prices, just for the people. I would just like to see you go to your league mates with these keep trade cut screenshots and secure this bag. Okay, show us the money. Show us the Cam Akers. Are you
implying that you cannot trade Cam Akers for a mid to early second at this point?
I'm absolutely implying that, yes.
That is outrageous.
I'm sure that you can in some spots. I'm
sure that you can in some spots as well.
I'm definitely not implying that in 100% of leagues you cannot. But I'm definitely implying that you cannot in every single league go to your league mates and as a currency exchange, simply put Cam Akers on the block, walk into your league chat the next morning, and see the early second arrive there at his place.
So I'm seeing Cam Akers traded on December 27th, straight up for George Pickens, who's worth a mid first, by the way.
Well, worth is a certain term.
Hey,
I would prefer the term valued as by the market, as opposed to
valued at by the market.
Worth implies that is a sensible valuation.
A mid first. So there you have it. That's great news. I'm seeing Cam Akers traded.
For the record, I would rather have George Pickens than Cam Akers, despite everything I feel about George Pickens.
So that's like the only trade. Oh no, there's four here. There's a Romeo Doubs and Cam Akers for a first and a bunch of fourths.
Whoever traded first for Romeo Doubs and Cam Akers is probably really bad at Dynasty.
You know, on Fantasy Calc, they don't actually tell you who it is. It's disappointing.
And is that you? That's you? You traded the first for Doubs and Cam Akers?
You're
happy it's anonymous?
Absolutely. And then there's actually two separate trades. This happened twice in the last... Literally today. Today, it happened twice today.
Wow, four
Cam Akers,
weeks. Oh my goodness.
Cam Akers for Michael Carter straight up today. That's insane.
I guess I'd rather have Cam Akers.
You would. You would absolutely rather have Cam Akers.
That's like worse than a mid-off. That's like a that's just. I mean, look, there are not that many running backs who have both a lower percentage of rushes over expected and a lower rush yards over expected per attempt. In fact, the only running backs who are worse than Cam Akers in both of those stats, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. But Michael Carter is one of them. So that's impressive.
So great job to whoever sold Michael Carter for Cam Akers. You are getting a substantially better running back. Efficiency.
I mean, look, I'll say this. I think Michael Carter sucks, and I think Cam Akers sucks. But at least Cam Akers didn't currently get cucked by a rookie, a UDFA that his team traded for and later made healthy and active, and another UDFA all in the same season. That's like an epic level of cuckery. He got thrice cucked after an entire offseason of people saying that he wasn't actually a day 3 pick because the Jets would have drafted him in the 3rd if they had a 3rd round pick. Michael would have been a 3rd round pick if you don't count the fact that he was actually drafted in the 4th round. Carter thrice cucked in 2022. Cam Akers is better.
See, you know what's going to happen, right?
Deserve everything that they get.
But you know what's going to happen, right? What's going to happen is you're going to get people saying, so I guess we're not going to talk about this, ... Since
that's
week 11,
literally
Cam
Derek
Akers
Brown.
eyeball,
that's just a Derek Brown tweet. You're just reading a tweet from Derek Brown.
That's true. People are going to say these things. There's eyeballs now. Since week 11, Cam Akers eyeballs, minimum 20 carries, yards after contact per attempt, 22nd, which is not impressive at all.
Right. You know the bar is low and people are celebrating being in the bottom 3rd of starting running backs. People are like, this guy is a below average starting running back and nobody's talking about it.
But he goes on, missed tackles force, 5th, immediately ahead of Nick Chubb. Noted Nick Chubb sucks. PFF elusive rating, 7th, immediately ahead of Najee Harris, who we all know is very elusive, and Austin Eckler.
Elusive guy.
He says, okay. There's a GIF of Cam Akers doing like a jump cut, I guess. Okay. And then it goes to his eyeball. So I think we're seeing the eye of the tiger or the eye of the ram, likely.
Right. My favorite ways of proving a player's value is to both use an arbitrary cutoff as to the week sampled and an arbitrary collection of stats. Like when you combine an arbitrary collection of stats that you choose to apply to an arbitrary collection of weeks that you choose, and one of those stats still has that player below the average starting running back in the NFL, that's when you know this player just can't fail.
See, but here's the thing. This is going to be all over Twitter all offseason. It's going to be talking about how Cam Akers is
hyped about Rachaad White and Khalil Herbert on all offseason. Are you crazy?
Okay, nobody's hyping Rachaad White. He's terrible.
People love Rachaad White. There's a reason why Rachaad White is over 4,000 keep trade cut points right now, despite being one of the worst rushers in the NFL.
They think he's the second coming of David Johnson, man.
They do.
He is a one-for-one comp of David Johnson, just like Sky Moore is a what's his name? Devontae Adams.
Here's the thing with Rachaad White. So I loved Rachaad White as a prospect, and I've said this I think before in the show.
You don't though. You don't love Rachaad White as a prospect.
No, you used present tense. I used past tense.
Yeah,
mostly in the sense that he was a prospect. No, I loved him as a prospect. But I loved him in the sense of like I didn't really have much of an opinion as to whether he was good. Like I didn't think that he was like obviously bad, and I didn't think that he was obviously good.
So then you didn't love him as a prospect. I agree.
What I loved was that he is good size, runs fast, and catches a lot of passes. Because I was like, basically at the worst case scenario, if this guy ever falls into a bunch of touches, he's going to score a bunch of fantasy points just by like factor of existence. And maybe he's really good. You never know. And then so far, I think what we've seen this season is that, first off, yes, if he falls into a bunch of touches, he's going to score a bunch of fantasy points. Like he scores fantasy points on a per snap basis at a very high rate. And in the one game that Leonard Fournette missed entirely, he had a 90% snap rate.
Do you think that there's a chance that his points per snap are buoyed by the fact that he plays with Tom Brady?
Oh, massively. Yeah, massively.
Do you think Tom Brady is going to be the starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next year?
Probably not.
So we're going to get a very negative narrative around Rachaad White next year.
I think that Rachaad White somehow is like the Teflon man. Like, so I've been getting into this why I like Rachaad White. And I still like Rachaad White in like a sense, but what I would say is that, like, I like Rachaad White. And this will sound really negative, but for those who like follow me in the Discord, they know this is actually a compliment in a weird way. I like Rachaad White for all the same reasons I like Samaje Perine, in the sense that, like, I always like these kinds of running backs who are like not very good, probably career backups, but are like all-purpose backups, right? Like, you see some backfields, it's like the starter goes out, and all of a sudden the backfield's useless because one guy can only play on early downs, and then one guy plays on pass downs, and it's like you don't even know who to start, and it's all game script dependent. Whereas like a Samaje Perine type, it's like Joe Mixon goes out, he just plays all of the snaps. He's not particularly good at anything, but he like is capable enough at everything. And he can catch passes, and he has a size. He plays all the snaps. You just plug and play him, and you know what you're going to get. I love rostering those running backs in Dynasty because they usually have no value, and you never have to worry about them when the starter plays. And as soon as the starter goes out, you just plug them into your lineup at RB2. You don't even think about it, and you're just going to collect points. And I think that that's probably Rachaad White's career. Like, I will say that similar to the Rams, to be fair to Cam Akers, the Bucs offensive line can't block shit. So I don't think it's a coincidence that both Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White grade so lowly in all forms of running back, quote unquote, advanced metrics, right? Like, I don't think that Rachaad White's actually like one of the worst running backs in the league. I think that, however, he's just like a very mediocre running back who could probably look decently good if he was in a good situation, and probably looks really bad when he's in a bad situation. And I don't know. Will he be the lead running back next year? I mean, I think it's possible. Do I think Tampa's going to go out and invest heavily in a running back? Probably not. I think they're probably just going to bring back Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White and see what happens.
Can we go back to Samaje Perine for just 1 second? Because I think you made a great point. He's like basically free, and he's the primary bell cow backup. And we should probably all be rostering him at this point.
Yeah, I have a saying in the Discord. I call him the Samaje P line, which is that any wide receiver who is below the Samaje P line is a wide receiver I don't want to roster. If you can't envision starting this wide receiver, then you just cut him for Samaje Perine.
So interestingly, this doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but it's just fascinating to me. So some of you may know, many of you probably know, we have very hardcore listeners to the show. Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon played together in college at Oklahoma. Samaje Perine, noted superstar, had a 3.9% target share in college. That's like worse than Ronald Jones, I think. Actually, that might be the same as Ronald Jones. It's really bad.
Same ballpark. It's bad.
It's exceptionally bad. Joe Mixon, on the other hand, had a 12.7, 89th percentile college target share in college. And now in the NFL, we're seeing Samaje Perine catching passes and Joe Mixon still catching passes, but not as many as we would like because of the presence of Samaje Perine. It's just freaking crazy that we've had this like kind of role reversal where Joe Mixon is kind of like not thought of by what the hell is the coach's name? Zach Taylor? No.
Joe Mixon and Miles Sanders have the exact same role, except that Joe Burrow throws to running backs and Jalen Hurts doesn't.
Yeah. It's just wild. Like I just can't believe that Joe Mixon is getting taken off the field in place of Samaje Perine when they played the reverse in college. The complete reverse. It's crazy. Anyways, Samaje Perine, go get him. He's going to be a very valuable addition to your team in the event of a Joe Mixon injury. It's great.
Samaje Perine. He's one of my favorite players in Dynasty. Yeah, I love that guy. You're right. You nailed it. Great job, everyone. Anyway, that's probably Rachaad White's future. Also, ironically, both were like borderline first-round rookie picks.
Samaje Perine went in the first round of many of my Dynasty rookie drafts back in 2017.
Yeah.
Like, actually was selected in the first round of Superflex drafts, mind you.
He had a higher ADP than Nick Chubb in several spots.
You know what? Matt, pause the show. I need to go back and look and see if this actually happened or if my memory is not working properly.
Samaje Perine was the original Dameon Pierce. And then I believe that Samaje Perine was immediately cocked by, I want to say, Fat Rob Kelly.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, roll it again. So I want to touch on Samaje Perine, the rookie, because this is hilarious. I have a league that's been running for quite a few years now. In 2017, we had a rookie draft. In 2017's rookie draft, I'm looking at the board right now. I'm going to tell you, let's go through the order, because this is what's really important about rookie drafts. First pick of the draft, 101 in 2017 Superflex rookie draft, Corey Davis. Makes sense, right? There was Patrick Mahomes, there's Deshaun Watson, there's Mitch Trubisky, there's Leonard Fournette, there's Christian McCaffrey, there's Dalvin Cook. There's
these are two. Wait, is this a Samaje Perine draft?
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. Okay.
And Corey Davis went 1.
Initially mixed up.
Then we got Leonard Fournette at 2, Christian McCaffrey at 3, Joe Mixon at 4. Nothing really crazy. Patrick Mahomes went at 5, and that was considered a reach at the time.
Right.
Dalvin Cook went at 6. Mitch Trubisky at 7, Evan Ingram and David Njoku at 8 and 9.
Yeah.
Mike Williams at 10, OJ Howard at 11, Samaje Perine at 112. Have you noticed who I haven't said yet?
Have you not said Deshaun Watson yet?
I have not said Deshaun Watson yet.
Oh, boy.
Then we have Marlon Mack at the 201, Deshaun Kaiser at 202.
Oh, boy.
Alvin Kamara at 203, and then we finally have Deshaun Watson. That's crazy. This is why
he wasn't the first Deshaun drafted.
What's that?
He wasn't even the first Deshaun drafted. They had to get Kaiser first. Drafted.
It's just wild to me. I like, if you go back and look at your old rookie drafts, you're going to see a lot of inefficiencies in the draft, which is why rookie drafts are so valuable. You can make so much profit in rookie drafts. Anyways, the moral of the story here is that Samaje Perine won in the first round of one of my Superflex tight end premium.
And we've got completely sidetracked. But what I was trying to say was that Rachaad White is such a weird case in that, like, I felt like nerd Twitter, or like specifically nerd running back Twitter, like basically like my little section of the Venn diagram, like the people who like are like data analysts. But then kind of like in terms of data dynasty folks, I would say that in running backs, we generally like further splinter into two camps. Like there's like the volume nihilists, right? Like you and like Harstad and like folks that are like, yeah, I'm just going to like take the guys with the opportunity share and I don't really care who's good and who's bad, whatever else. And then there's like the other section to which I generally belong, which is like more talent focused and using data to decipher that. And I would say that my like crew really liked Rachaad White as a prospect. And I think because of that, he still like has the reputation of being a really good running back. And I think in part, like he might also have that based on like Leonard Fournette just being consensus bad. And I feel like people are so used to like the Zeke Pollard like situation, right? Where it was like, oh, Zeke's so bad, Pollard's so good. And then that became like actually true that Pollard was really good. And I don't think enough people have like stopped to realize that Rachaad White actually has also been really bad. And he's like meaningfully no different from Leonard Fournette in any way. And he's probably bad. But for whatever reason, people still have like a lot of excitement about him. And I don't think that's warranted, but I also don't think it's going to stop any particular time soon.
Do you know that Rachaad White is actually 23.9 years old right now?
Yeah. Do you remember when there was a poll on November 16th that Akash posted that asked if people would rather have Rachaad White or Najee Harris in Dynasty, and the majority said Rachaad White?
Idiots.
And I, as a Rachaad White former lover and a Najee Harris lifelong hater, I quote tweeted that and I said, "Ugh, Twitter is going to force me to become a Najee guy. I hate this." Yeah.
I'm becoming a Najee guy because this is dumb.
Yeah. So Rachaad White is a big sell, unfortunately. I hate that. I like Rachaad White. I like running backs like Rachaad White, but I think he's a big sell. Cam Akers is also a big sell. And Khalil Herbert is the one guy who got left out. He's probably the guy that I'd be most interested in buying because I think he has a pretty reasonable chance of being the lead back for the Bears in 2023 because David Montgomery's a free agent. Khalil Herbert has been excellent this year. And the Bears are really bad. And is it possible that they go out and they add a big ticket running back? Of course. Is it possible that they re-sign David Montgomery? Of course. But I don't know. I'm not quite selling my Khalil Herbert shares yet. I think I'd rather roll the dice, see where it lands. Worst case scenario, I get a back that's talented who stays as a backup. Best case scenario, I get a guy who's going to have a shit ton of hype in the summer if he actually looks like he's going to be the clear lead guy, and then I can probably sell him. But he's that guy. Like, I think the ceiling on his value is higher right now than the floor. Like, worst case scenario, he just remains a backup that people think are good. That's not the end of the world. Then he's like Elijah Mitchell.
Except he's not good. So someday
Khalil
people
Herbert
are
is
going to
very
figure
good.
that
This
out.
is wrong. Khalil Herbert is very, very good.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just thought you were talking about Rashad White.
No, Rashad White's a bomb.
Yeah.
But
Khalil Herbert, yeah, not very good. Totally get it. Yeah, should definitely not be holding value in Khalil Herbert at this point. He's valued quite highly. What is his value right now?
It's slightly less than Cam Akers, and Khalil Herbert's good, and Cam Akers.
So he's like a mid-second then.
More likely to start.
Khalil Herbert is a mid-second. Cam Akers is already a starting running back. Yeah, you should definitely have Cam Akers over Khalil Herbert. Noted.